the sound that makes everyone in the stadium wince. That moment when 120 kilos of pure muscle meets an unsuspecting runner at full speed. Welcome back to the Rugby as we dive into the careers of rugby's most feared tacklers, the back row players who turn defense into an art form of destruction. Let's start with Jax Berger, a man who played with no regard for his own safety and a player who hit hard time after time. His tackle technique was unique. He'd go low, very low, cutting runners down like a scythe through wheat. What made him special was his work rate. Despite being troubled with knee injuries for the majority of his career, he'd always deliver when called upon, making 25-plus tackles a game, each one delivered with the same intensity as the first. His performance against Exeter in 2013, where he made a record-breaking 36 tackles without missing a single one, remains one of the greatest defensive displays in the history of the English Premiership. When asked about his seemingly superhuman pain threshold, Berger simply said, "You can't think about your body when you're on the field." This mentality made him one of the most respected and feared players in world rugby. Pieter-Steph du Toit, the Dark Destroyer, who made tackling an exact science. His 38 tackles against New Zealand in the 2007 World Cup quarter-final isn't just a record. It's a testament to his supernatural ability to be everywhere at once. What made him unique was his reading of the game. He seemed to know where the ball was going before the attack did. His technique was perfect. Same leg, same shoulder, wrap the arms, drive through the contact. But it was his timing that set him apart. He'd arrive at exactly the right moment, when runners were at their most vulnerable. In that famous match against the All Blacks, he single-handedly changed the course of rugby history, proving that one defender could nullify even the most potent attack in world rugby. His nickname wasn't just for show. He would destroy attacking patterns with surgical precision. If we're talking about pure intimidation, we need to discuss Sebastian Chabal. The French caveman became a cultural phenomenon, not just for his wild appearance, but for hits that could be heard from the parking lot. One particular tackle on Chris Masseau in 2009 became so legendary that it spawned countless YouTube compilations. But Chabal was more than just a highlight reel. His presence alone would change how teams attacked. Opposition fly-halves would often skip the crash ball option entirely when Chabal was lurking. What made him unique wasn't just his power, it was his theatrical timing. He seemed to save his biggest hits for the most dramatic moments, often turning the momentum of crucial matches. The fear factor he brought to the game was unprecedented. You could literally see players hesitate when he was defending the channel. His time with Sale Sharks in the English Premiership became stuff of legend, with opposition players admitting years later that they'd deliberately avoid his zone on the field. Next up, we have Vincent Alberts. Alberts, nicknamed the Bone Collector, earned his nickname through years of devastating tackles and collisions. At 120 kilograms, he was like a freight train with a bad attitude. Alberts always fought fire with fire and rarely came off second best. His impact on the Springboks' defensive line was measurable. When he played, teams would attack the wider channels, avoiding his zone of influence entirely. His ability to stop opponents in their tracks with his dominant hits was crucial to the Springboks' defensive efforts during his international career, which spanned 43 caps from 2010 to 2016. One of Alberts' standout traits was his timing and technique, making him effective in the close contact collisions that define modern rugby. His hits were not only ferocious, but often game-changing, turning defense into attack by disrupting opposition momentum. Whether playing for the Springboks, the Lions, or the Sharks in Super Rugby, Alberts' physicality always stood out. His brutal tackling style made him one of rugby's most feared defenders. Now we turn to the England enforcer himself, Courtney Laws. Standing at 6'7" and weighing 115 kilograms, Laws made a name for himself when it came to monster collisions. His specialty, the perfectly timed hit that stops runners dead in their tracks. His most famous victim, Jules Plisson of France, in a tackle that's been viewed millions of times. The hit was so perfectly timed that it became a masterclass in defensive technique. But what makes Laws special isn't just his ability to make the highlight reel, it's his consistency. Game after game, season after season, he's been England's defensive cornerstone. His technique is so precise that despite the ferocity of his tackles, he rarely gets carded. In an era where high tackles are heavily scrutinized, Laws has mastered the art of legal devastation. What's even more impressive is his ability to read the game. He seems to know where the ball is going before the attacking team does, allowing him to time those monster hits to perfection. Schalk Burger is one of the most iconic and hard-hitting players in rugby union history. Known for his fierce tackling, relentless work rate, and aggressive style of play, the South African flanker was a key figure in the Springbok team for over a decade. Burger's tackles were legendary, often leaving opponents shaken after collisions. His fearless approach to defence, combined with his immense physicality and athleticism, made him one of the most feared back rowers in the game. Standing 6'4" and weighing 114 kilograms, Berger had the size and strength to make an impact in every facet of play. But it was his uncompromising tackles that truly defined him. His defensive efforts were key in helping South Africa win the 2007 Rugby World Cup, and he consistently played a pivotal role in high-pressure matches. Despite suffering from serious injuries and health issues during his career, including a life-threatening bout of bacterial meningitis, Berger's resilience and determination were remarkable, allowing him to return to the international stage stronger than ever. Berger earned 86 caps for South Africa, and his fearless tackling and hard-nosed playing style cemented his place as one of the toughest players to ever wear the Springbok jersey. The incredible Schalk was a nickname entirely justified. Sam Underhill has been described as a tackle bot, programmed to chop down anything that moves. His technique is almost mechanical in its precision. One of his most famous performances came in the 2019 Rugby World Cup semi-final against New Zealand, where he, along with Tom Curry, delivered a masterclass in tackling and breakdown work, helping England dismantle the All Blacks. Underhill's low, explosive tackles often halt even the most powerful ball carriers, and his ability to consistently win turnovers adds another dimension to his game. He doesn't just make tackles, he makes dominant tackles, driving players backward and disrupting attacking momentum. The data backs this up. His tackle completion rate consistently hovers around 95%, with over half of those being dominant tackles. His defensive skills, combined with his intensity and physicality, have made him a standout figure in the back row for both England and Bath. The modern era has given us its own share of hitting machines. Pieter-Steph du Toit combines the traditional South African physicality with modern athleticism. Standing at 6'6" and weighing 120 kilograms, he's the evolution of the traditional enforcer. What makes him special is his range. He can hit hard in the tight channels, but also cover the wide spaces, bringing that same intensity to every collision. His conditioning is extraordinary. He maintains the same tackle power in the 80th minute as he does in the first. This was evident in the 2023 World Cup final, where he made 28 tackles as South Africa beat New Zealand. His versatility across the back row positions has revolutionized the role of modern forwards. He's equally comfortable at blindside flanker or lock, bringing his devastating defensive prowess to whatever position he plays. His performance in the 2019 World Cup campaign, where he was named World Rugby Player of the Year, showcased his unique ability to combine brutal physicality with incredible stamina and technical precision. And then there was Gerry Collins, the all-black enforcer who defined an era of New Zealand rugby. Known as the Terminator, Collins brought a level of intensity that made even the hardest men in rugby think twice. His hit on Colin Charvis in 2003 remains one of the most talked about tackles in rugby history. What set Collins apart wasn't just his tackling power, but his complete disregard for reputation. Whether you were a rookie or a seasoned international, Collins hit everyone with the same bone-crushing intensity. His work in the famous 2004-2007 All Blacks back row alongside Richie McCaw and Rodney So'oyalo set new standards for defensive dominance. Even in training, teammates would visibly flinch when Collins was defending their channel, a testament to the psychological impact he had on players. His tragic death in 2015 left a void in rugby that can never be filled, but his legacy lives on in every big hit that brings a crowd to its feet. Finally, Samu Manoa showed that America could produce hitting machines to rival any rugby nation. Playing for Northampton Saints, he combined NFL-style tackling with rugby technique to devastating effect. What made Manoa special was his athleticism. He could hit hard from any position, whether standing still or at full sprint. His background in American football brought a different dimension to rugby tackling. He understood angles and momentum in a way that traditional rugby players didn't. This cross-sport pollination has influenced how modern players approach the defensive aspect of the game. These men didn't just tackle, they changed the way opponents played the game. Teams would literally plan their attack around avoiding them. But here's what keeps rugby fans up at night. Who really hit the hardest? Was it Chabal's raw power, Berger's relentless intensity, or Laws' perfect timing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The debate rages on in pubs and clubs around the world. Some argue for the old-school enforcers like Chabal and Collins, who played in an era when the rules were more forgiving. Others point to modern warriors like Underhill and Du Toit, who maintain that intensity while staying within today's stricter laws. The evolution of the game has changed how these tackles are executed, but the impact, both literal and figurative, remains just as significant. What we do know is this. In an era where rugby is becoming more about speed and skill, these men remind us why it's still called a collision sport. Their legacy lives on in every monster tackle, every dominant hit, and every moment where defense transforms into attack. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments if we have missed any legendary hitters from our picks. If you have enjoyed watching, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more rugby content. In the meantime, see which players out of this list made it into our most ferocious ever team.